In light of the recent series of bus crashes, Governor Andrew Cuomo has suspended the licenses of 8 tour bus companies for allegedly failing safety inspections. But the companies are actually fighting back, saying that the governor is overstepping his limits by punishing them with hastily passed rule changes. My next guest believes that the harsh reaction against bus companies has been really over the top. Godfrey Lebron joins me now from Hofstra University. He is the president of the State Bus Association, and he's also a bus owner, if I'm not mistaken. Mr. Lebron, nice to meet you. How are you?
Yes, how are you this evening, Liz?
I am well, thank you. So you own a bus company, Paradise Travel, that's right, on Long Island? So you have experience with this. Okay.
We've been in business for actually 24 years now.
And you are not one of the 8 companies that saw suspensions by the administration?
That is correct.
Okay. So the way that they went about doing this was an emergency rule change by the Department of Transportation, and it was in response to a spate of, in a number of cases, deadly bus crashes. I think the problem, as I understand it, from the industry's point, is that you didn't have any heads up about this change. Is that right?
Well, that's correct. What's interesting was we at the Bus Association of New York just had a meeting with New York DOT in Albany just last month, and this really comes as a surprise. And first, let me say that you know, we at the Bus Association of New York and the entire industry, we take our profession very, very seriously. And one accident is one too many. When, if you look at the past 10 years, our fatality rate was 54 passengers in total, and those are NHTSA statistics. Now, the one thing that I want to say is, you know, while it's very difficult to comment on accidents, we do have the National Transportation Safety Board that does a tremendous job at actually trying to find the cause of a crash. And for example, the one New York carrier that was involved in an accident, they kept talking about the licensing issue. But let's not confuse a regulatory issue with the cause of, you know, the specific cause of the crash. These are two different. These are two different issues. And what's shocking about this is that other than the Badori tours and the worldwide accident, what the governor has done doesn't do much to really solve the problem, because the bulk of the carriers were domiciled outside of New York.
Okay,
so
hold on.
Yes.
Let's just unpack this a little bit. There's a lot of information coming on here. Let's just start with this statistic, okay? Before the most recent crash that we're talking about that caused the administration to take this action, 32 people had been killed and 323 injured in 17 tour bus accidents this year. That's according to not the feds, but to the Advocates for Highway and Auto Safety. But that's more than in all of last year. So let's establish this. Do you believe, from an industry standpoint, that there is a problem here with bus safety?
Well, there's certainly a problem with the increase in crashes, and I think we need to look at and study why that problem is.
Okay. Do you have any idea, before a study might be done, but from a professional standpoint, why this might be occurring?
Well, within my own company, I know we take a lot of pride in making sure that we manage trips that we get. You know, some of this stuff could be based on the economy. There has been this new phenomenon with the increase of the scheduled service carriers, where they're running higher frequency of miles. You know, that could be, you know, one of the root causes. But once again, it's something that you need to look at each accident as an individual and try to see, you know, what specifically led up to it, because you know, an accident is something, as I tell my drivers and my mechanics and everyone, you know, we're the moment before. So the only time that you can do something to prevent an accident is before it happens, you know, not after the crash occurs.
So when you bring up the issue...
There's certainly been a change.
Well, okay, so we established that there is, in fact, a problem here that needs to be looked at. So I think that everyone agrees on that. When you talk about the economy, do you mean that more people want to take a bus because a bus is affordable, or that the buses are actually hiring more people because they have more jobs available, or what specifically is economically driven here?
Well, it seems to me that if you look at what's happening, and just from a pure common sense perspective, people to travel, let's say, through the night, there tends to be a higher propensity for something bad to happen in the evenings. That doesn't mean that it's not safe to do so. It just means that you need more preparation. You just don't all of a sudden tell the driver, listen, Liz, I need you to take this group of Marines to Camp Lejeune, and you tell them that when they're getting off work at 4 o'clock, and by the way, I want you in at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
The driver could be legal and compliant, but is that the best way to do it? Obviously, it requires a little more preparation. And as I said, I can only speak to what my company is doing. I know our business has changed. And quite honestly, there have been some trips that we just refuse to do because we don't have enough lead time to get the right person, to put the right driver behind the wheel to do the trip.
Okay, so when I'm looking at this emergency rule from the DOT, it basically gives the commissioner of the Department of Transportation power to immediately suspend or revoke the authority for an authorization certificate so you can operate basically a bus. In a number...
But that is only within the state of New York.
Okay, so what you're saying is this doesn't address the issue of out-of-state carriers, correct?
Not at all. The governor of New York, that is why we're sort of shocked, because we believe that the New York State Department of Transportation was going to work very closely with the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration that just launched a new safety measurement system that is barely a year old. And right now I'm at a disadvantage because all of my state inspection criteria doesn't go into the federal database. And if our true concern is to try to eliminate crashes, I just don't think that New York can work as an island. I think they have to work in strong partnership with the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, because this doesn't solve the problem of out-of-state buses.
No, I think that sounds quite reasonable. The problem is that you read these stories about drivers who have revoked licenses or suspended licenses and they're operating, or drivers who had past criminal records. I mean, obviously, that's a significant problem. So how do you address those kinds of problems, particularly if the carrier in question is operating from a base that's out of New York?
Well, I personally feel that the commercial driver's license still needs to be done more on a federal level. For example, the aircrafts, they don't answer to a state, they answer to the FAA. So a pilot that is licensed that happens to live in Oregon meets the same criteria as a pilot that may live in New York or may live in New Jersey. And I find it rather odd that we even though we have licenses, and for example, the accident that just occurred this past week, the carrier FAR is a good, responsible person up in Ontario, and he knowingly would not allow a driver to operate in New York. And we still don't know, and it's not right to comment on an investigation that's ongoing, but from what I understand, the driver's license was valid in the province of Ontario and not in New York. And I can't figure out why that is, because I have to fill out a commercial vehicle operator's registration for Ontario, and they have reciprocity with New York. So something was dropped there. But once again, the license issue did not create the accident. So let's keep that, let's keep that in mind.
Let me ask you this then. The Senator Schumer has endorsed the Motor Coach Enhanced Safety Act. Now, this is actually addressing, it sounds like, what you would like to see at the federal level. New safety tests, passenger seatbelts, driver training, standards for bus companies. That's a nationwide approach. Is that something that you feel is needed?
Provided that science is what drives the regulation, most certainly. But we still have to remember, see, there's an interesting thing that happens here. I can prepare everything, and I think if you'll find out in research, very few crashes have anything to do with vehicle maintenance. It all comes back to the driver. And what I personally would like to see is certainly, do I want the best possible bus to be able to put on the road? You bet. But there's also an issue when you have an economy, and let's remember that between Canada and the United States, we operate over 33,000 coaches. That's 750 million passenger trips and 1.8 billion miles yearly that we average. So the bulk, and as I said before, one accident is one too many. But if all of a sudden you're going to begin to change an industry where now the economic decision of the passenger is, do I just go in 3 minivans because the coach is so expensive for us to charter, when you had 33,000 fatalities on our roads in passenger cars, we've got to weigh this out. So that's why I'm a strong proponent in whatever the science brings, that we can certainly put into play to give our drivers the best opportunity, but there's no substitute for a responsible driver, a driver that is not living under stressful conditions, that is well rested, and which is really the bulk of the professionals that we have in our industry that go out and do a good job day in and day out.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time. This is not a problem that's going away. The Cuomo administration is clearly interested in doing something about it. We will be monitoring that story. In the meantime, I want to thank you, Mr. Lebron. It's great for you to make time for us. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Liz.